Benjamin Castle are Americans. Watching the footy.
Liam Ryan saying, kick it my way, I want to jump over the pack, and here he comes! Ryan!
This is Buddy Franklin! This is the greatest showman!
Got the handball off to Myers. Myers looking for the lead of Stengel. Gee, they're good. Gee, they're sharp. Razzle dazzle Rioli.
Oh, who else? McDonald!
From inside the centre square. Boys kick the goal. Boys kick the goal. From inside the centre. Foul. Oh, they can't believe that.
This is episode 148 of Americans Watching the Footy. I am Ethan Castle.
I am Benjamin Castle.
And we are coming to you tonight from Club Dub, celebrating the big win by our Mississippi Valley State Delta Devils. 1-27, bitches.
The last winless team in Division I NCAA men's basketball has gotten on the right side of the game for once. Mississippi Valley State is a university I doubt many of you have heard of, unless you know that's where Jerry Rice went to school. That's like the only thing they're known for in the field of athletics?
Pretty much, yeah.
These Delta Devils were like your Pistons as well, right? Just like waiting for them to finally break through?
I mean, first we had the Pistons, then we had the Detroit Mercy Titans, another college team, and now here we are. They did it.
They've gotten off the schneidiest of schneids.
Welcome to Club Dub.
Party at Rice Totten Stadium?
Oh yeah, baby. They're going to be slamming car doors in the streets of Itabana tonight.
Upper class coach of the year?
Yes.
Absolutely. So this is season 3, episode 2, part 2 of our home and away preview, going team by team. We went through 6 last time, and I don't really want to waste any time here getting into the 7th. I feel like any of the big stories are going to come up as we talk through each team, right?
I guess, other than what's happened since we last talked? Cam Guthrie, quad injury, 8 to 10 weeks.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Literally first kick of the season.
6 seconds, I think maybe second kick? Second disposal?
This is like being a Mets fan. This is like the Family Guy clip.
What this does allow is for Jai Clark to slot into a more prominent role right away. And maybe George Stevens as well. So if you're one look at the younger cats, you're going to get that, whether you're going to work out right away or not. And then Taron Thomas sacked by North, and then basically by the league as well.
As I've said, the word sack means nothing to me because in Commonwealth countries, literally any sort of punishment can be called sacking. It's like you gotta give more detail to that.
Officially suspended 18 weeks, but also basically told by North, you're not going anywhere else either. So good luck. I hope you don't get any.
Unfortunately, I think my dreams of him being our next Tyson Stengel are quickly vanishing.
He ran out of lifelines. But those are stories for the teams that we covered. Anything else I think will just happen as we go along here, spinning this here wheel and getting started. It was a pretty Victoria-heavy episode last time. I believe it was 5 Victorian clubs.
Yeah, I guess the only one that wasn't was the Mighty Sun.
The Mighty Sun.
Expect more of an actual split from here on out. Team 7 of 18. Oh boy. Orange team. Yeah. If we have a soft spot for any team of which we aren't members, either of us, it's got to be the Giants.
It's funny because like at this time last year, I was typing up Frio. I have a soft spot for the D's, but this GWS team is really fun. I think they're just like, I compare them in a lot of ways to a cat where like you lose to them and then big sound comes on and you can't be pissed. Just like if Brian Harambe, who's currently sitting over in the windowsill, like knocks something over and inconveniences me, like I can't be mad. That's funny.
Overplaying and he like bites too hard or doesn't retract his claws and breaks our skin a little bit. Can't be mad at that. It's just like,
but yeah, these guys, they're kind of like this fun, lovable troll team. Their social media presence is amazing. They've got some fun personalities on the team, although my favorite of their list from last year is no longer there.
Yeah, that being your sleeper who never got any AFL time.
He was discriminated against.
Because he didn't drink water?
Because he had such amazing hair. His hair was like, he saw the clip of Bart dancing in a wig and said, I want to look like that.
This being, of course, Jason Gilby,
The milkman.
yeah, who is now on the Eagles waffle list, and he's one of Harley Reid's friends, so I guess that helps. What's the idea?
Jason Gilby versus Joe U. Milk versus water. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, just go on Twitter at Honda Deal 4, the number 4 vets. This dude used to work at a Honda dealership in our hometown.
Yeah, I mean, I passed by that actually this morning on the way to my substitute teaching
I think
gig.
he lives in the Central Valley now, but he is hysterical.
This old stoner, and
This like Vietnam vet dude who keeps up with the rap game and does doink chats and talks about how important it is to drink water. He's pretty amazing.
Joseph Urban, free motherfucking water.
Top in space.
Yes, I forgot about Top in Space. How? In all seriousness, it's been a pretty quiet off-season for Greater Western Sydney. Very little list turnover. You did see Daniel Lloyd retire after getting 101 games, I believe. Glad that he was able to hit that milestone and won a couple finals on the way. And then Phil Davis didn't play any games in 2023, but still definitely a leader in some respects. And I guess this means we'll see him on some more broadcasts again. He was on the some New South Wales 7 broadcasts this past year. I imagine that'll continue.
Not opposed to that.
Nice to get non-forwards in there at times.
Yeah, this team was such a pleasant surprise last year. The thought was their defense is going to be like Sam Taylor and then hope for the best.
A motherfucking, damn, ham, a fucking sandwich.
And then Sam Taylor got hurt and the defense was actually really good.
They actually didn't even need him to clinch the final spot in round 24.
Connor Ivan was really good. Harry Himmelberg moved back and it was a good decision.
Well, Himmelberg had, gone between 50s for a while, and really after, kind of at the 1/3 point of the season, Adam Kingsley said, you're staying back, and it worked from there. He was able to take one of the biggest one-on-one matchups most weeks. Iden's overall defensive ability far exceeded my expectations. The one thing that the Giants kind of lacked compared to other teams was, that lethal key forward, though Jesse Hogan as an overhead mark remains very strong. If they do take that next step, though, it's time for Aaron Cadman to be what a number 1 pick should be. Very minimal time last year. He did have that debut, that phenomenal game, which had one of the Mark of the Year finalists in it. That was Harry Himmelberg, 1/10 of a mile apart. You still can't get over that, can you?
If you had told me the Giants would make finals in 2023, you would have thought, oh, Aaron Cadman is instant rising star winner. Probably had a 60-goal season, right? He was kind of a marginal guy.
And it was Jake Riccardi who was the big forward surprise.
I am not looking forward to playing the Giants at home again because I'm so used to them winning at Geelong. I'd like to just play them at their place and get it over with. I'm really surprised just the way scheduling has worked. We host them round 11.
Yeah, surprised that is staying the same there. Or do they just not want Jeremy Cameron to have to face a raucous crowd back at the showground? All 7,000 of them? Okay, I'll be generous, 7,500.
Look, I hope that their success last year leads to bigger turnout. They have the opening round game against Collingwood, and I hope it leads to more support because the fans they do have are fun. And their social media manager is hilarious. He's got a podcast now, right?
Yeah, Jacob Gaynor has a podcast with Tom Green.
He was named Club Man of the Year, or what was the?
I think it's that. Yeah, like some club personnel award.
They're double ups this coming year, by the way. They've got a couple of returning finalists in Brisbane, Carlton, and the Swans. They also have the Dogs, Hawks, and Suns. So their strength of schedule sits around 7th or 8th. But I think it's actually a deceptively tough schedule where if the Hawks and the Suns are the weak links there, that's pretty challenging.
It's a kind of strike that makes sense for a preliminary finalist. The thing that stood out the most to me for this past year, though, for the Giants was how everything worked to help free up Toby Green. You had one small forward addition and one small forward return helping with that. The addition being Snooze, Toby Bedford, and the return of big Brent Daniels did pretty much everything there to let Toby Green do whatever he wanted in the forward half of the year. You saw him taking some center bounce attendances even, and then went off for one of the best goal-kicking seasons we've seen a small forward have in ages. How they end up navigating and matching up against, how opponents match up against those flanks, I think is really going to determine what kind of year Toby Green's going to have. And then when it comes to the midfield trio, the on-ball trio of Tom Green, Stephen Coniglio, and Josh Kelly, it was Kelly that you saw get tagged the most near the end of the year. I believe it was Marcus Windhager who had him in the elimination final. Maybe was Willem Drew on him in the prelim? He might have been. But Green's a tough tag just because he's the one immediately getting those ground balls. For a team that's so strong at that, I think it makes sense that kind of the next person off the chain is going to be the guys to be targeted. So is this one of the rare cases where you might want to try like two taggers? One on Coniglio, one on Kelly?
A midfield tag and a defender tag?
Or like a double midfield tag, or just having a bigger body on one of them. I don't know, because that still leaves Tom Green. I'm saying like immediately at the center, at a ball up, for example. I don't know. I would love to get into a midfield coach's mind when trying to match up against the Giants.
I don't think there's like an obvious answer here, unlike against, say, Frio, where it's like, tag Caleb Sarong. This isn't hard.
Well, we'll see if Andrew Brayshaw complicates things this year. The other thing I love about the Giants list is how well the whole fast-paced style worked for pretty much every part of their age bracket. Even the slowest guys like Hogan had a role because Hogan was still that tall overhead mark. And they're going to continue trending in that younger direction. Unfortunately, their number one pick, Phoenix Gothard, 12th overall, caught mono, so he'll be out for the start of the season. Some questions about whether Finn Callahan and Isaac Cumming will be ready to go right away. They're looking unlikely, but they have depth that we didn't account for last year, and we certainly do now. Having said that, Ethan, you want to pin a depth guy to have a big year? Who's the idea for your sleeper?
This is a tough one because there's already like so many guys that did so well last year. Like I'm struggling with this. Can you even count like Lockie Ash or Ryan Angwin maybe as a depth?
I think Angwin's a decent pick there.
I guess just because he's on the younger side, right? Angwin's 21 and can play the wing. So let's go with Ryan Angwin. This is tough to find a sleeper for a good reason.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely tough. And you had your guy last year in Jason Gilby that, was a very outside pick, but Angwin hardly played in 2022. I believe, just played one game and broke his tibia then, and then played 15 this past year and has gotten more time there on the wing. And if you're looking for a way to kind of take some heat off that core midfield three, having Angwin as a link to those flanks, maybe Angwin and Bedford teaming up, seems completely logical. My pick is a player that I've really liked for a couple years now, and that's Xavier O'Halloran, number 33. He was injured at the start and the end of the home and away season last year, but he still got a career-high average in touches in the game from the time that he had as a depth piece. A former first-rounder who I'm waiting to take that next step, and with a half-forward spot open, especially sort of center half-forward job, maybe with Daniel Lloyd retiring, I could see O'Halloran with the burst that he has being able to take that sort of spot. And he also signed a 2-year extension, so the club clearly believes in him. So Ryan Angwin and Xavier O'Halloran are guys to watch there. I will certainly highlight them throughout the year as we go through each team's games. We'll definitely keep spotlights on them. I mean, we talked about it a little bit when we did our post-mortem teams last year. We should really pick a winner out of the sleeper picks for these ones this year. See if one of us is actually better at doing this than the other.
Let's use the sort of ranking system that Foolish Baseball uses on his pitchers I like, hitters I like, players I don't like. Where he gives a 0, a +1, a +2, a -1, or a -2.
Yeah, that makes sense. We'll go. Obviously, this will be kind of an end of the year grade, but something for us to remember.
Let's do it.
All right. So we go from the Giants to the team that beat them last year in round 2.
All right, you are the talk about the Eagles guy, so I'm just going to kind of defer to you here, and eventually I'll chime in when I come to a conclusion about a sleeper pick, I guess.
Okay, I've got 2 things. The West Coast Eagles are finally hosting the Brisbane Lions at Optus Stadium, and they will claim the spoon again. Next.
Wow, that was That was really informative.
Well, okay, I'll go for more here. Obviously, Harley Reid is the focus of absolutely everybody, and apparently you can't write anything critical of him in the West because Peter Sumich just left the paper because he wasn't able to write something that he wanted. So there's that.
Especially funny when a paper based in Perth is doing all this work for a guy who's going to be playing for Geelong in like 3 years.
Yeah, and that it's an Eagles great who got fed up about not being able to write what he wanted. Oh yeah, just you said, Ethan, that one team is going to get absolutely fucked by injury every year, and I reminded you no, two are, because one of them is the Eagles. Just everything about this club, even after drafting the guys they did, like Harley Reid, Clay Holland, pick 38, you immediately look at everything else, and you're hoping for escalators, but you're always rolling eels. Blow me! Apparently that's real leaked audio, by the way, from the Sailor Mouth episode. I had to include that. I absolutely had to do that. Wonder what your friend Derek thinks of that, Ethan.
I'll ask him.
Yeah, so one of Ethan's friends, like best friends, works for Nickelodeon. And one time Clancy Brown gave him his very good Dodgers tickets. Yeah, let's take a look at this injury list here. Elijah Hewitt has a stress problem in his foot. We don't know when he's playing. Jai Cully is recovering from his ACL. Finally started some full group training again. Liam Ryan's hamstring does it again. We don't know about Don Sheed's status for the start of the year. Oh yeah, we just learned yesterday Matt Flynn has a detached tendon around his hamstring. So that's 10 to 12 weeks right there. One of the two veteran acquisitions that the Eagles brought in this past year is already hurt. Welcome to the fucking West, Matt Flynn. The other, of course, is Liam Ryan's friend, Tyler Brockman. Welcome home. With Hewitt healthy, I would have said, oh, the midfield is clearly the bright spot here. And you know what? I think that still is the case thanks to the combination of Tim Kelly, Liam Duggan, and Ruben Jinby. Duggan doesn't get enough credit for what he's done through the Premiership era and beyond, and I like that he has gotten an extra leadership role. He's now one of the co-captains along with the man for whom you'd run through a brick wall, Oscar Allen.
Yeah. We've talked a lot about Oscar Allen. Really talented, emotional leader, totally bought in. The culture
Is actually damn good.
it would be hard not to be a fan of him.
I'm just hoping for Jack Darling or someone else there to actually stay healthy in order for him to not get all the heat. It's going to be tougher now, though, because the plan was to have Bailey J. Williams take more forward time than Ruck. But with Flynn out now, there's really no option but to play Bailey J. in Ruck even more. And honestly, that's probably the right move anyway. Ashley kind of ascended from what does he even do territory to actually like middle of the road Ruck, if not higher. I believe he was 11th in the competition in terms of hitouts to advantage, which is actually damn decent for a team that had so little going for them this past year. It's a matter of actually taking advantage of the hits to advantage for Bailey J to really get his due. So who's lucky enough to double up against the Eagles this year, Ethan?
Essendon, Frio, of course. The Suns, who seem to have a pretty soft schedule altogether. The D's, North, and the Saints.
D's Eagles seems like a more frequent double up than you'd expect. Are they playing off that 2018 prelim still? The one where the D's went absolutely flat in the first half?
I don't know. I've said for a while there needs to be like some sort of system to the AFL double up system. Like what I would do is, you could have each team with one or two like protected matchups each year, rivals that they always play twice. And then maybe one or two spots that are just kind of like cycling, that cycle through each year to make sure that you get everyone eventually. And then a couple of spots based off a ladder position. I think the way to do it would be, have a mix of rivalries, based off ladder position, and just a couple of like, well, shit, they haven't done this in forever. Let's line them up.
Yeah, like, oh, they haven't doubled up against like either Western team for a while. Let's make sure that happens and make sure they actually get a trip out to every state.
Yeah, I think that would be good.
Of course, you know that Collingwood won't play Tasmania in Tasmania for like 15 fucking years.
It would be really funny now. Save that clip and it'll be like their very first game.
Oh, I would love it. But
I feel like their first game would actually probably be against like North or Hawthorne, I bet.
one of the Tasmanian timeshares. That just kind of jumps off the board to me there. And soon enough, hopefully the Devils will be official. Forgot to mention also in the midfield, while he's still healthy, Elliot Yeo has looked good there.
Yeah, I've said multiple times, like as someone who has not watched a ton of the Eagles, when he's on the field, Elliot Yeo's good. He's just never on the field.
I was born with glass bones and paper skin.
Also, other player that impressed me from the bits of Eagles games that I watched, Jamie Cripps, even at age 31, like what he does.
Yeah, good in the first couple games of the year. Broke his leg, came back, and had a big impact in that last win against the Bulldogs. He kicked 5 in that one? Yes, he did. 5 in round 23. The only problem with Jamie Cripps is he turns 32 in April. It's going to get worse before it gets better.
I don't know. I don't think he can get much worse at this point. I keep thinking like, oh, they've definitely bottomed out by now.
Yeah, but now no Bunga, no Nick Nat, no Luke Shuey.
And they pretty much played without Nat Nui for like
2 years.
Yeah.
But this will probably be one of Jeremy McGovern's last couple years. Jamie Cripps, as I said, will be on his way out soon. They're going to be very, very young, and I hope that it doesn't end up just discouraging everybody because they're going to get slaughtered sometimes. As long as they don't get like 200 scored on them, they're like, I don't want to see 180 this year.
I think the most, like, what's a realistic baseline? Like, how about no more than 1 or 2 100-point losses? Is that fair?
If you've got the health in the back line, then yes.
I think regardless, I think that's a good baseline to set.
I think so. And my guy Brady Hoff will be a big part of that in terms of small forward matchups. I know he was cramping at the end of the match sim against the Dockers, but he's got plenty of time to get healthy. Obviously, also big off-field transitions with Don Pike replacing Trevor Nisbet as CEO and list manager Rowan O'Brien out the door. Change has been overdue. It reminds me almost of the Hunt. No, but how the San Jose Sharks took way too long to get rid of their older pieces.
What about the Phillies? I think the Philadelphia Phillies are actually like a pretty good comparison.
Yeah,
to
the like early to mid 2010s Phillies. Obviously, the Sharks stuff just hits closer to home for us. But yeah, with Hoff, knew the ability that he had on the wing to begin with, then got the small forward time, held Charlie Cameron goalless at the GABA, and that was all that it took to convince me. And he's filled out his frame even more this offseason. So I'm super excited to watch his progression continue. My sleeper for this year for the Eagles, I had a really tough time working on this one. It took me way too long to come up with this one compared to the other 17, but especially after Flynn's injury, I realized Callum Jameson's going to get some important time as a second-rate ruck, and then looks like he's being trialed in the back as an extra tall there. And with the damaged goods that you have in Tom Barris and Jeremy McGovern, that is necessary. So hopefully Jameson becomes disciplined there and ends up working out as like, I could see the ceiling for this as like almost a Radagolea type thing, where like he doesn't look quite natural there, but it could work if he's not the main guy. And he should never be the main guy if they're at reasonable health.
Do I go with the unimaginative pick or the reach?
I feel like the point here really is to go for the reach.
All right. I was thinking, I mean, it's tough because he played 19 games, but I was thinking Noah Long. Also, he looked like baby.
Oh, Noah Long looks younger than his new jumper number, which is
13.
Yes, Luke Shuey personally gave him number 13. That is a big vote of confidence. Long, good crumbing forward, just good small forward craft as a whole. And if Liam Ryan continues to have his physical issues, then Long's going to get even more targets. Who's your reach? Check if he's still on the list.
He is. I'm mostly just going to go with him because of name. I don't know if he'd be able to get a game unless a lot of people get hurt, but Locke Rollinson. Literally just picking him because of the name.
Okay, Locke Rollinson.
It's a footy name.
Yes, Rollinson was the rookie draft number 1 pick from, I want to say, Sturt?
Yeah. I'm just throwing him in just, again, the logic is, shit. The name sounds like he'll be good.
From the bits and pieces that I did see of matched him in various trainings. Rawlinson is another one of those small forwards, bit fuller of a frame than Long. So maybe you can see the two of them playing off each other or opposite each other there. If they're able to keep him around, I would be very happy to see him and Long kind of occupy those pocket spaces. Yeah, Noah Long looks like he belongs in middle school.
I really want to emphasize the value of picking guys based off of name,
Just pure vibes.
and how it actually works.
When did this work for you last year?
I'm even gonna let me find an MLB draft example. Let's see. Try to find someone who just you look at as a later round pick and it's oh yeah, that just sounds like a baseball player. Yeah, let's see. Carlos Correa, baseball name. Byron Buxton, baseball name. Courtney Hawkins, Nick Travieso, not baseball names. No wonder they didn't pan out.
Let's look at the 2014 MLB draft here. Let's go way down and just look at guys that make sense. Jordan Romano, 10th round pick.
Yep, baseball name.
Exactly. All-star the past 2 years. But the other thing I remember about Rawlinson, by the way, before we move on, is he's damn fast. Under 3 seconds for the 20-meter sprint. He can have that goal sneak ability. So he could sometimes, have that flank job, a high half board, or could be down in the pocket. I think a lot of it will actually depend on what Long is able to do physically and how he can handle one-on-ones.
One more example from that draft. 11th overall pick, never made the bigs. Max Pentecost, not a baseball name.
Max Pentecost?
Yep, not a baseball name.
What name generator did you use for that?
Real person.
I don't blame you. Moving on. We're going to be halfway after this.
Josh Ockamy, not a baseball name. Kevin Padlow, not a baseball name. He's one of the worst players in the majors.
Adelaide Crows, not finalists this past year, as heartbreaking as that was.
Now, I've said, and I just said this during our fantasy draft discussion the other day.
Yeah, and somebody's going to be uploading that. I think Coach Donnie has Donnie's disposal. We'll be uploading that draft audio. It's 12 Americans in this league, and I think 7 of us were on the call.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm using the strategy to draft that has not worked for me and I am abandoning in fantasy baseball, but has worked pretty well in footy, actually, which is availability is the best ability. Pick guys that are reliable and consistent, and then, through the waiver wire and stuff, pick up some of the breakout guys, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, anyway, during this discussion the other day, I noted that, it's been a trend. Someone who missed finals makes a top 4 the next year. And the two most obvious picks for that are the Cats and the Crows. And I think the Crows would be the easiest of those picks, just so long as their defense doesn't combust. With considering just the amount of injuries they've had, they might go and combust.
Well, even with Tom Duday and Nick Murray doing their ACLs last year, and Jordan Butts being out late in the year with another lower body injury, they didn't quite combust. Max Byplanning was one of the highest defenders in terms of rising star votes. Josh Worrell really grew into a tall one-on-one role as a deep back, which I'd seen coming for 2 years, and I'm glad it finally happened. Mark Keane, one of the best success stories from the very end of the year, finally got his Crows debut, had come back from Ireland right away, showdown, wins against Charlie Dixon all night long. And of course, Mark Keane is the victim of the first tribunal incident of the year, unfortunately.
Yeah, Sam Powell-Pepper is going to be getting, 3 games, I think?
The league wants 4 or more.
Well, I drafted Powell-Pepper the other day, but I've got enough midfielders that I can withstand it.
Plus, we know a guy who can trade a lot of midfielders to you.
Yes.
One of the guys did not set up his auto draft well.
Yeah, and it just kind of took, a whole team of midfielders.
We had some fun with that. Another couple names there in terms of the younger side for the Crows defense. James Urlacher Borlace, seriously built like a linebacker.
And then at the other end of the spectrum, the extremely small, baby-faced Patrick Parnett.
Yes, who I know you're quite fond of.
Yeah, I'm honestly could I consider either of those? Would those even be eligible to be my sleeper breakout pick?
Honestly, I would say either of them, yeah, because both had limited time last year. Parnell got rocked early on by Nathan Broad, and Broad was sent to the tribunal for that, I believe. And then Borlace only got in at the end of the year as well, was re-rookied by the Crows, I believe. His father, of course, was a Port Adelaide Sandful Premiership captain, which makes it all the more interesting too. But Borlase, I think, was part of their Next Generation Academy because he was born in Egypt or something. So he had academy eligibility. And speaking of young defenders, when Dan Curtin slid down to pick 8, the Crows pounced and made the trade with the Giants to grab him. Excellent pickup.
Yeah, kind of worked out perfectly for them in the draft.
The Western defender who a lot of people were wondering if the Eagles might try to swing a big trade to get 2 for 1 with Reed and Curtin, or even abandon the thought of Reed altogether to stick with the homegrown guy. Instead, 2 of the biggest names in the draft are moving states, and it all revolves around purse. Through all of this, the defense does obviously remain the biggest question for the Crows. I mean, I guess the other big question is how long until Taylor Walker drops off?
Or does he ever ask to go elsewhere?
He would never.
I mean, you would think.
Nah. He's been there for 16 years already.
He's from Western New South Wales, Broken Hill.
That is right on the border with South Australia, though, and I believe they use South Australian time. So, if I told
they also use South Australian dollars?
Good question. But no, Texas sticking around. That's not a question. It's a matter of, does he drop off, or is he just Benjamin Button in terms of forward ability? And the supporting cast around him, how long are they going to be willing to sit there and sit behind him? Thankfully, one of the big names in that discussion is an actual South Australian in Riley Philthorpe.
I will believe that Riley Philthorpe is going to be a superstar. If he retires having never done much during his career, I will still be convinced, he's still going to break out. Just wait.
And Darcy Fogarty was born in Victoria, but he's also a South Australian native. So I think we've got some stability there in terms of tall forwards who are from SA and are willing to hopefully stick things out. Are you going to die on a hill with Riley Philthorpe like Mel Kiper Jr. was going to with Jimmy Clausen? If he doesn't make it in 8 years, you're done?
No, because I will not be giving up footy, but I will still, 15 years after his career ends, tell people, hey, watch out for Philthorpe this year. This is going to be his year.
Whereas Riley O'Brien is hit ball, Riley Philthorpe has, actual ruck craft, and I'm hoping we get to see more of that. It's tough also when you've got Walker taking so many of those forward 50 taps. So I know this is going to be his 4th year, but still, even as a number 2 pick, he's kind of in a squeeze right now where he doesn't really have the chance to be his fullest playing self yet.
One other guy I want to identify real quick, because I'm not calling him necessarily a breakout pick, but could be the sort of guy that comes onto the scene this year maybe in a more muted sense, would be Kieran Strawn. Say Riley O'Brien gets hurt, I think he is a good fit to do the same stuff that O'Brien does, maybe with a little more marking ability around the field, but, a big guy. He gets hitouts.
It's amazing the contrast between the way Riley O'Brien plays. You would think that based on his playing style, he'd just be a super simple guy. No, legitimately going to be a doctor. That is a very fascinating dichotomy right there.
It's funny because, for example, Josh Dobbs, it's oh yeah, he learned the playbook, he won a game without knowing the playbook. Makes sense.
Without knowing his receivers' names.
Whereas it really doesn't fit at all with Riley O'Brien. Just Braden Maynard with his on-field versus off-field personality, which I kind of love. I enjoy when people's on-field and off-field stuff is so different. Kind of it's not necessarily a field, but say Joey Logano, most hated guy in NASCAR, and then off the field is just or off the track is just oh yeah, nice dude.
Braden Maynard of the track.
Pretty much, yeah.
And they're both champions now, too. Logano, I think, is a 2-time Cup Series champion. I believe so.
2-time Super Bowl champion Kadarius Toney.
Nobody loves that more than 5 points.
See, that's just so much proof that the rings argument is absolute garbage. Just look at the amount of people that have won championships, whereas Braden Maynard is actually good. Okay, this has nothing to do with the Crows anymore. We should probably get back on track.
Yeah. How about more full-fledged years in more natural roles for both of the notable forward R's in Isaac Rankin and Josh Rochelle? We saw Rochelle in an in-between spot a lot last year. Questions about him maybe being dropped.
He was really hit or miss at times.
And I think he still will be in year 3. But it's about time for him to have a more full year. Maybe try to get some more inside looks, because he was very much an outside target in the 450 this past year. And then Rankin, we know what Isaac Rankin is capable of. We don't exactly know how high his ceiling is. Did have the hamstring injury against the D's last year that slowed him down a bit, but I am just excited to see where this Crows team goes.
The most likely scenario in which the Crows scoring doesn't dip as a team, even if Walker's does, is that Rankin ends up scoring a lot more.
And Rochelle.
Yeah. Like, what makes this team so intriguing and so easy to be high on heading into this year is that, like, they largely have safeguards for the things that would be, like, their most likely weaknesses, other than, the defensive depth, which is already kind of boring.
Ethan, how about you name your sleeper first for the Crows?
I was debating between two guys we already talked about. I'm going to go with James Borlase just because he's a big boy.
Is he the biggest boy?
No, but, oh my God, it actually says 192 centimeters and then just dash kilograms, because we're not allowed to know how much he weighs.
Looking at last year, 101.
100 in non-communist measurements.
That's like 222, 223. Again, he's like around that linebacker build, and was a little undisciplined last year. Definitely had his clumsy moments, but with another year and the idea in place that, yeah, he's going to get a decent amount of first team time at this point, with Murray out, with due date gone. I like that idea there of kind of picking Borlase to have a bigger year. I'm going with Ned McHenry, who was quite often their sub this past year. In 11 appearances in 2023, how many times was he the sub?
8?
7. A smaller forward with plenty of ability to run and carry on the wing. I think about the game against Collingwood, for example, where he had a lot of that time on the wing, and he won that part of the ground in the second half at the G, where they nearly beat him. He on contend for a starting spot at this point, and if he needs any more motivation, this is a contract here. And if you want any more reason to watch him, Ethan, he was a Geelong Falcon.
I like the sound of that.
You know, Benjamin, 78% of our listeners are between 18 and 35 years old, so they probably want to start a podcast like we did.
How did you know that number, Ethan?
Thanks to the analytics we have for Spotify for Podcasters.
Formerly known as Anchor, sorry Frio fans, Spotify for Podcasters has tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast from your phone or your computer. No fancy software needed.
It's so easy you can edit it while drunk.
And Spotify for Podcasters doesn't just allow you to upload to Spotify, you can also distribute your podcast on platforms like Apple, Stitcher, and more, just like we do.
Best of all, it's completely free.
Not only is it free, you can even make money from listener support or ad revenue. Hint, hint.
Download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to podcasters.spotify.com to get started today.
Welcome back, everyone. A reminder that we are available on a lot of social places at the handle Americans Footy, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Maybe you'll find us some other places as well soon with that handle. Who knows?
Not TikTok.
Is Blue Sky finally open?
I don't care about sites like that, but I can promise you we will never be on TikTok.
No, we will not. If there's any sort of video like that for us to post, it will be a YouTube short.
Look, you don't have to go on TikTok to point at something on the screen.
Wait, are you Jason Derulo?
He now says at least he gets permission to use those, which I hope he actually does.
He says it. That doesn't mean he does.
I think he actually does.
I don't think we're going to have like a Jason Derulo redemption arc like Azzyland.
Nah, I think Jason Derulo already had his redemption arc. And there's also the thing about him falling down the stairs.
Yes.
I love some of those, things that like someone has to repost every few months and claim as their own, like the, how can a generation raised on Family Guy in South Park be so easily offended? Or, this diner still makes Coke the old-fashioned way. Or, the umpire doesn't decide if it's strike 3. Buster Posey does.
Couple more years till he's Hall of Fame eligible, right? 2026?
I don't know, I guess.
He ought to be first ballot.
But I like some of those, like, it's not quite, is it freebooting? I don't know. Anyway.
Back to work?
Yeah. Let's try to be, like,
a little more efficient.
Do we tell, like, where we each are individually?
Yeah. So, I'm at Benjamin HK01 on relevant social medias.
I'm at Castle Media on Twitter. Brian Harambe is on Instagram at Cat Named Brian.
And he's currently rubbing up against my hand because he's a very good boy and a very soft boy. And now he wants a belly rub, which I might give him.
The overwhelming majority of photos I take of him are just him, like, lying on his back.
That's how you can tell a cat's really comfortable around people, is if they're willing to expose their belly like that. But I think I'm going to start giving Ethan a belly rub. Yeah. I think I'm going to start giving Ethan's cat here a belly rub.
Yeah, I'm not getting a belly rub.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I'm going to start...
Thanks for the offer, but I'm going to decline.
I'm going to start giving Brian a belly rub here as we start talking about Geelong's sworn enemy,
Hawthorne?
I know, Ethan, you find it hard to dislike Hawthorne.
I know. I've said, like, the average conversation between, like, a Geelong fan and a Hawthorne fan these last couple of years should be something like, you know, the Hawthorne fan says, hey, fuck you, thanks for taking care of Isaac Smith. And the Geelong fan says, hey, fuck you, by the way, you guys have a really good young list and you're going to be really good soon.
And hopefully Cooper Stevens is part of that equation.
Or they could just, like, give him back.
Oh, you mean like they got Jack Gunston back?
Yeah, that's something.
Yeah, it was something. And they gave up Brandon Ryan in return very quickly.
This seems to be the team that got hit really hard on the injury list this year.
Yeah, so where to start with that? I mean, it's almost all defenders. There's a reason why the meme that's going around that Leo Puglisi is helping spread is James Sicily just looking there and it just says Hawthorne update. Fuck.
I like that meme a lot. It's a good meme.
Yeah, let's see. So James Blank, ACL, Denver Granger Barras, turf toe, mid-season probably. Backbone stress for father-son pick Will McCade, that's 12 weeks. Will Day and Chadwick Jap both have hamstring problems. You might not see either of them till round 4. What it means is game on for supplemental signing Ethan Phillips, a winner of the Fothergill Round Mitchell medal, which is like a guaranteed AFL list spot at this point. I think the past 17 winners have now won it, and Phillips looked all right in the time he had in the match sim against the Bulldogs. You know, not sure how much of their hand Hawthorne was willing to show when they're going to be having a community series game against the Bulldogs now down in Tasmania, but I think we'll really be able to see how much they trust Ethan Phillips in that role right away. And you can see Jai Sarong going back as well. I didn't think about this. Really, I forgot how tall Jai Sarong is while still playing in the middle. He's shifted back and really looks to be playing the part well. One of my favorite things about Hawthorne, purely when looking at their list and then looking at what worked so well for them last year and going into this one, is their tall midfield group. I love tall midfielders. Connor Nash is a 6'6" bull. Jai Sarong can play in the middle, and I'm going to mention my sleeper in there as well because he's another bigger midfielder there. I think I should hold on talking about who that is, though, because I think it's going to become obvious sooner rather than later.
I was just going to be a dick and just read it off the screen, but okay, I'll let you have your fun.
Okay, fuck it. I'll just say it.
It's Henry Hustwaite.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be a lot of people's sleepers anymore. Once people saw like his fantasy value in terms of match sims and also just the field vision that he has. There are a lot of comparisons to like a taller Scott Pendlebury being made from Hustwaite. Really light on his feet, versatile, tall for his position. Was a pressure midfielder and forward in his first 2 games last year, but he also began his 2022 campaign, his draft year campaign, in defense. So I picked him before we even started this a week ago because I thought wherever there are depth issues, he's likely going to play. And then all of a sudden, I watched him against the Bulldogs and I realized, no, he belongs there in the midfield. And maybe tall midfielders are just going to be the way for them between Nash and Hustwaite. Good presence at center bounces being part of that as well. I think that probably enhances the Scott Pendlebury comparison even further. Hustwaite is still 19. He'll turn 20 in July. He is 6'5". So you got a 6'5" and a 6'6" midfielder in there between those 2 guys that I already mentioned. I love that.
The taller Pendlebury comparison got me wondering, is there like a footy equivalent where like any short pitcher gets compared to Pedro Martinez? Is there like a footy version?
I wouldn't know at this point. Maybe, I don't know, like how many small forwards do we see get compared to Kazi Pickett? Is that the answer? Or to Charlie Cameron?
I don't know. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, it's definitely something for us to investigate. Just overall, Hawthorne obviously leans young. They leaned young to begin with last year, and then they went even younger with their early draft pickups of Nick Watson and Will McCabe, and then bring in the biggest, most headline-making trade piece because his name is Jack Ginnivan.
Even though I still think, like, if you ask me who's the most impactful trade of the offseason,
It's Lockie Schultz.
Yep.
It's
Lockie Schultz.
And then maybe Liam Henry.
I don't even past Schultz, but the top one is Schultz, and it's pronounced Schultz, not Saloon.
Yeah,
Or
however they try to.
it's Schultz.
Yes.
Anyway,
Oh, and the other one there. We've been begging for Massimo D'Ambrosio to get more time at Essendon. He's going to get it now at Hawthorne. He has to. We've seen his versatility. We saw him get stuck in the sub role a lot at Essendon. Can go from halfback flank to the wing really easily. And the wing is still a bit of a question there, especially with Will Day being out and just other lineup issues. And maybe you'll see D'Ambrosio venturing even further forward like he did to win the game for Essendon last year against North when Hawthorne doesn't have a timetable for Dylan Moore to return. He's got mono, or as you Australians call it, glandular fever, or as everybody should call it, the kissing disease.
maybe that's what people meant with cooties.
Was cooties about mono the whole time?
Either that or an STD.
That's actually a good question. I feel like we need to find this out for ourselves. What was it about Hawthorne, Ethan, that drew you to them from the beginning? Was it the list construction, just buying into the vision off the field, or how it translated on the field from the beginning?
Kind of all of the above, actually. Big fan of Jai Newcomb. Just like they've built this kind of from the inside out, from the midfield. I just like the structure of everything they've done and kind of the long-term vision where they're clearly going big picture over short term. And I think in their case, that is the right call. You know, the fact is, not all 18 clubs can be contenders at once. And I think they've made the calculated decision to kind of bide their time and wait to be able to really make an impact.
I don't think they're going to need to wait too long, though. Obviously, the way the injuries have hit them at the start of this year will make things very difficult, but they will spoil someone's finals chances this year like they did to the Bulldogs last year. I would love for it to be the Bulldogs again.
That would be really funny. So here's my thing. Even pre-injury, I wouldn't have taken them as like a trendy pick to get all the way up into the 8th this year, just because there's a lot of teams they have to jump in order to do that. But I I like the direction they're heading in.
Is this a positive thing if we say they're a year away from a year away?
I think they could be a finalist next year. I think they're still probably 2 to 3 years away from real flag contention, if not maybe even like 4, but they're coming.
Coming.
And in terms of some of those younger guys that they brought in, Ginnivan coming in now means he's got a great opportunity to learn from Luke Bruce and Jack Dunstan while they're still there. You can almost see them as playing coaches within the group. Some of the depth, especially up forward, is still really a big question mark, especially now with Granger Barras out. He had been set forward at the end of last year, and with Mitch Lewis having trouble staying on the oval as well, they could have some trouble against tall key defenders. Who is your sleeper for the Hawks, Ethan?
This is another tough one, because I feel like most of the guys that are in that mix are already pretty well established.
Are you just going to beg on Cooper Stevens finally getting games?
Sure. Yeah. He should have had games last year. He's really good.
Underused from the beginning of his AFL career. Like Jack Ginnivan, he grew up a Hawks fan. 7 games for Geelong in 2022, and another one of those bigger midfielders. So if they really want to go with this bigger midfield group, have big bodies to surround Jai Newcomb, then Stevens would fit in there along with Nash, Hustwaite, etc. I am very high on Connor Nash this year as well. I think he's going to firmly establish himself as far and away the best Irishman in the league. I am sorry, Zach Toohey. I am sorry, Mark Keane. I am sorry, Connor McKenna. I'm not really, actually. It's just Connor Nash's time.
He's tall.
He's just big as a whole. And you're not going to be able to stop him and Newcomb both. 2 more to go here in this episode. We have hit every state already, which is nice.
Do you use like a spinning wheel sound effect?
Yes, I use the Wheel of Fortune.
Okay, I feel like, first off, I want to talk about Wheel of Fortune for a sec. It's dumb that everyone claps while the wheel is spinning. It's like nobody's done anything.
I have no idea how it started, but it's the tradition, and it's been happening for 40 years.
I think it would be really fun if everyone did something else instead, and I'm not sure what.
I don't know, is this like strip Wheel of Fortune where everybody removes an article of clothing each time they spin the wheel?
Ooh, that could work. And then the other thing that I was thinking about was, like, what sort of different sound effects could you throw in instead of a wheel spinning that would be fun?
I mean, you could do any sort of thing. Like Mario Kart item box would work actually really well, like the item roulette for Mario Kart.
Okay, but what would be, like, really unfitting and out of place and funny?
Bagpipes.
Okay. By the way, I think the bagpipes are, like, the worst instrument.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
I don't know if we've had... Have we not had this discussion before?
I think, I forget if we'd had it on video here.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I just don't like the bagpipes.
Do you not like It's a Long Way to the Top?
I do, but just, like, it, other than as, like, a supporting thing for a few seconds, they literally have this, like, background buzzing sound the entire time.
Well, the drone's kind of the point, though.
The sounds they make are just not good. It's like, has anyone ever gone to a concert just to hear someone play the bagpipes? Like, you know, you go to see, like, a famous violinist or something, or go see Yo-Yo Ma play the cello. I don't think anyone ever goes to see, you know, MacGuffin, Highlander, whatever, play the bagpipes.
With that being said,
I would go to see Groundskeeper Willie do it, though.
Willie tickles the twang for two. Oi, oi.
team number 11. So, 11 is just over half of the years that it's been since this team has won a final.
Essendon?
The perennial trade period champions, Essendon. Obviously, change in the air there with Adrian Dodoro finally being on the way out.
I mean, I feel like nobody's actually had anything positive to say about them during trade period for a long time.
No, they're the trade period champions. How dare you?
How dare you?
Basically, Ben Mackay better stay healthy.
They actually did make some additions this year, and more than just Mackay. I mean, he's like the big one.
Especially because it netted North pick 3 initially, which they turned into pick 4. And so Ben Mackay ended up netting them Zane Dersma. Ooh, Dersma, speaking of, his brother will be occupying the wing for the Bombers. So Dersma and Durham potentially on the wings on opposite sides for Essendon. That's fun. And I'm happy for Dean and the Dersma family that they'll be able to see their kids play AFL footy a lot more this year just because they're all back home. All 3 of them who are at AFL level are, because Yasmin went to Carlton, I think, in addition, and their youngest, Willem, was on the All-Australian team for the Under-16 Carnival this past year, so watch for him to come in at some point, too.
So they have an X, a Y, a Z, and a W?
I think it was in that order. I'm wondering if they just weren't planning for a 4th one. Surprised they didn't wrap around and go for an A, come to think of it now. But yeah, I was just thinking about the Durs.
Now they should have gone with a schwa, the 27th letter.
Or actually ampersand. Ampersand used to be considered the 27th letter. I don't think Sweden would have allowed the name, unfortunately. Of course, the way you would pronounce it is Albin.
That's a really deep cut. If anyone knows what the fuck you're talking about, I'd be
But yeah, Dersma as a wing addition makes complete sense. Wasn't getting that consistent time at Port. Able to get that back home now. And then I can't tell if Jade Gresham is overrated or underrated, but I don't think he's properly rated in some way. Where do you stand on Jade Gresham?
I think he's pretty good. I just don't know how you're going to kind of incorporate him within the rest of the forward group.
I mean, he can go from the center bounce attendance to center half forward role pretty easily. He's got the motor for that. He's a goal a game average throughout his career.
I do like it.
Oh, I do too.
Let me establish.
And I think what you need to see is take some of the targets away from Jake Stringer and toward Gresham instead. I just don't think Stringer is that guy anymore. And I think Gresham being there will help take some of the heat off him too. So maybe that's kind of some sort of symbiotic thing there.
I'm just disappointed that Darcy Parish is still there.
And that he's not in hoops. Well, Darcy Parish and Nick Martin continuing to play together, that's going to be fun. Nick Martin has shown the wing ability, but I think with Dersma coming in and Durham being present and what he showed in the back third of the season, you're going to see Martin get more and more inside time. So Martin getting inside, and he's a pretty accurate kick for a goal, too. It reminds me, in a way, of his captain, Zach Merritt. So I would honestly expect those two to get rotated between center and half forward assignments. The issue with Essendon remains, though, in the back, especially when Brandon Zerk-Thatcher goes away to Port.
Yeah, I clowned on Zerk-Thatcher a few times, and I always tried to give the disclaimer. It wasn't him, it was the position he was being put in.
Yeah.
Where he was being asked to defend tall guys, and he's not built for that.
No, there was
It was really more like a jab at their list management than it was at BZT himself.
Yeah, he was the unfortunate victim of that, and the unfortunate victim of injuries as well to Jaden Laverty, Jordan Ridley, Nick Cox hardly getting time these past couple years. So he was thrust in a difficult spot to begin with, and Tom Hawkins became his dad very easily. Twice.
He's had a lot of dads. Has Essendon, if they stay healthy enough defensively, could this team go on and like make a real finals push?
That middle part of the ladder is going to be so crowded. I think it's going to really depend on how they end up working out that midfield mix there. The other thing that Essendon has going for them this year that they didn't last is that they ought to have Peter Wright going in to start the season. So between him and pick 10, Nate Caddy, you've already got your key forward stocks looking a lot better. You're not going to have to rely on Sam Wiedemann being that top target from the beginning because he was never that and didn't shine in the opportunities that he was given last year.
I mean, let's also note, though, that it's not like offensively this team struggled that much even when Wright went down.
It's a matter of, a more diverse forward group, though, in terms of height and build, though. Just greater depth there. Matt Guelphy had a lot of injury problems as well last year.
He's one that I think can, I really like him in kind of that, like, facilitator role to set up stuff in the forward group.
And able to take some of those targets as well. Like, maybe be a guy kind of in between the Martins and Merritts.
Yeah, it's kind of like that, I'm blanking on the right word for it, but like kind of the point where everything kind of funnels out.
Like a choke point almost? Well,
no, it's like a reverse bottleneck. I don't know. It's like, think of a shower head and how all the water comes in from one spot and then it sprays out. He's kind of like the shower head. Is that a good call?
Matt the showerhead Guelphy?
Sure. We're going with it.
Okay. Matt the showerhead Guelphy. Spread out his targets from there. I actually get where you're going with that.
They call me a modern Ayn Rand.
Oh, so you're super weird politically too?
No, it's just, I was just thinking, fountainhead, showerhead. I don't know. I'm just making words at this point.
I had to read one of her books in middle school, I think. It was that weird one, Anthem.
Never read anything by her. Can't tell you anything else about her.
I don't remember much about Anthem either, except you like it was a society where they weren't allowed to speak in the first person.
We live in a society. Sleepers. Yeah.
Yeah. Sleeper for me, it feels weird calling Zach Reed a sleeper, but when you don't play all of 2023, even if you were a top 10 pick in the past, I think you kind of automatically qualify, yeah?
I guess this is a tough one because there are so few new guys that weren't like just drafted.
Yeah, but in terms of Zach Reed, he might be in from the beginning this year, especially with Caden Baldwin having a stress fracture in his foot and not having a timeline there. He was talked up each of the past 2 years as a big factor in key defense, kind of taking taller targets than Jordan Ridley or Jaden Laverty, and he was going well alongside Ben Mackay in match simulations and the pieces that I've seen. So if Essendon is going to make something out of 2024, have immediate returns from all this movement, it's going to. I think it's also going to require Zach Reed staying healthy and returning to form.
This is a really tough one because, like I said, so few young guys that weren't like just drafted. How about, can I go Jaden Davey or Jai Menzie?
Jai Menzie was up there as one of the better number 47s last year.
Small pool to draw from, but let's go Jai Menzie. I feel like just within all the other good forwards they've got, he could get lost.
Oh, especially now with Jade Gresham in there, because Gresham at times had that sort of goal sneak ability, right?
Yeah. I don't think Gresham, being a taller guy, is much of a goal sneak.
Well, but kind of like within 10 meters of the goal.
Yeah,
That type of situation.
kind of a guy who gets like grimy goal.
Jai Menzie has that ability too. I think about the way he won the game for Essendon against the Eagles, going over the top like that. You can see Jade Gresham doing that, and you've already seen Menzie do that for Essendon. With Gresham in there and the other mix of small forwards, Menzie could easily get lost, so I like that.
All right, I guess we're giving the wheel one last spin for this round, yeah?
Yeah, man, this is a juicy list of teams that we have left. We have 5 finalists, one that just missed, and one in which we were like the most disappointed last year. And the wheel just barely hits the Blues.
Yeah, it was still close to staying on the Lions and ended up just ticking over to Carlton. We use that, spin the wheel app that like it's not hard to find. A lot of people have used it.
Yeah, I like it because it just actually is a wheel and just able to color code it properly. People thought the Blues were going to be there for a while. They thought, okay, they're a known commodity now. They finally became a commodity in 2023.
I really started to understand why people don't like them. It's funny because like on the field, I actually really enjoyed what they did, but it's Collinson. You a Blues fan?
Yes.
Fuck you.
If Marshawn Lynch would have gotten into Footy, that would have happened.
I mean, it could still, I don't know. I just, that is one of the greatest videos of all time.
Just like going around to every Niners fan he saw.
Just go, fuck you.
And it's personal for him. He's an Oakland kid.
And played for the Seahawks.
And the Raiders.
Fuck you.
I mean, we have loved Marshawn Lynch from the beginning, watching him play at Cal, so that there's just even more joy.
If you haven't seen the video, go watch the video. It's a great video.
I guarantee our listeners are the type to have seen it.
Good. Fuck you.
Fuck you.
And that's even better than Karsman opening his like Kickstarter event going,
Fuck you. Fuck you. I had forgotten about that.
Washington Redskins, go fuck yourself.
So, where to start with the Blues?
They made finals last year.
They made a fucking prelim. Harry Mackay still can't kick straight. It didn't matter. Nick Newman at age 30 had a career season.
Hello, Newman.
It took them a while, but they figured out kind of the combination that worked. They started to piece together involving especially like a lot of Matthew Cottrell, really playing off of speed up and down the lineup, and just figuring out the combination of players that finally got them where they wanted to be.
And the defensive steadiness of Jacob Wiedering and then him so often going out to the aforementioned Nick Newman made their movement, yes, predictable, but nevertheless extremely fluid. And Newman is a good, long, accurate kick, too. Who knows how much time he's got left, but in terms of older players last year, he was probably my favorite surprise throughout the entire league. And I am not a Blues fan in any way, shape, or form. But with Wiedering, of course, he's unlikely to be playing in the opening round this year because of a calf injury, so there's some strain there on their defensive structure because they are very, very dependent on Wiedering. And where are the chips going to fall there? Caleb Marchbank has an injury that he's getting over as well. Either Lewis Young or Brody Kemp needs to have a big year this year for their defensive depth to make sense. And one of them is probably going to be starting at fullback. And I'm pinning it on Kemp. Kemp is my sleeper this year for the Blues. He can start chains out of defense pretty well, a decent rebound player, averaged over 6.5 marks a game in his 17 contests in 2023, had some pretty noticeable brain farts, including in their first final, but he worked through them.
My one thing with this team that I don't like is that they made so few additions, although they did bring in Orazio Fantasia, which is awesome.
Just because we're going to hear BT saying his name more.
And because I think he's a good player who just never really found a way to crack the lineup at Fort Adelaide.
Yeah,
but the thing is, once you get good, you got to keep getting better to stay ahead of teams. And I think that's the one thing that could lead them to regress a bit this year is they just didn't keep improving in that arms race.
Yeah, and you combine that with Sam Walsh's back issue flaring up again, you've got some more questions in the midfield that I think a lot of people might account for, even with Patrick Cripps being right there. Walsh's absence last year when he had his hamstring injury was covered because he had Patty Dow emerging. Dow wanted out. He got to the Saints. And I think they're really going to be missing him.
This is one of the hardest teams to come up with a sleeper for. I've said that about a bunch of teams, but especially these guys, just because it's like, who is not a known quantity here at this point?
Yeah, I mean,
you know what?
the first thing that comes to my mind is like guys who like didn't get many games last year. I'm thinking of guys like Lockie Cowan or Jackson Binns, who we were saying week after week after week, he's got to be debuting soon. He's got to be debuting soon and never has.
Can I go with Fantasia even though he's 28? Or is that like against the principles?
Honestly, because Fantasia has been so out of the spotlight the past few years between injuries at Essendon and at Port and just not seeing the light of day anywhere, I don't mind that.
That's what I'm going with. I think he's going to end up in there and impact in a few games. He's still
Orazio Fantasia. That is seriously like the golden BT name. And you can see him in the forward pockets pretty easily. If you look back to his time at Essendon, he had flexibility there as a small to mid-sized forward. And this is also a spot where you can see him as sort of injury coverage early on with Jack Martin. When Martin came into things last year, the forward line definitely stabilized once he got healthy. But with his knee injury likely taking him out of their first game, that prelim rematch against the Lions, I think Orazio could cover some of that ground. The smaller forwards were so much of a question last year. Going into last year, the known quantity was Carlton's two talls, Charlie Curnow and Harry Mackay, the Coleman winners. Over the course of 2023, the small forwards solidified. Jack Martin reemerged. Jesse Motlop burst onto the scene after we had waited about a year for it to really happen. And I know you are as big a Jesse Motlop fan as I am.
creates chaos in the forward group in the best possible way.
And then the other couple guys to really mention are the Hollins brothers. Ollie Hollins has gotten as much praise this year over the summer and into the first simulations and intra-clubs as anybody, with really locking down a spot somewhere in that center line. We'd seen him on the wing to begin with, but now we're seeing him get some inside spots even more, which I would think naturally would be more of a job for his older brother Elijah. But with Elijah being out those first couple weeks because of his cocaine possession, I can get why Ollie could start the year more in the middle. Elijah's got the big body that could really help Cripps in ground ball situations, and maybe he could be another one of those first off the contest guys. You saw the Hollins brothers linking up together against the Cats in the match sim. I think we're going to see that throughout the season once Elijah is able to get in, starting with round 2, technically their third game. Of the prelim finalists from last year, though, I feel like the Blues have the widest range of possible outcomes, even more than the Giants.
Yeah, that seems right. I mean, I could make a case where like the Pies have a pretty wide range of outcomes, even though the value of the whole is so much greater than the sum of the parts. Yada yada. I could still be convinced on that front, even though that's not logical. So you mentioned, and I think this is going to be a really good transition to lead out. You mentioned Elijah Hollins is missing time for cocaine possession. Well, one of the teams we haven't got to yet has a bunch of cocaine stuff to talk about, and we will do that in our final part of the season previews.
Yeah. At some point when the D's come up,
wow, way to spoil it.
yeah, there's going to be a lot to say. I mean, I'm just going to say it now. That Angus Brayshaw retirement, it's pretty hard for me because he was a player to whom I really gravitated when I first started really understanding the sport, kind of August, September 2020. He was one of the guys that really started standing out to me then. And then 2021, as the D's rose, I gained an even further appreciation for his game. But let's save the talk about him for next time because it'll obviously be there.
This has been a long episode. I think it's been significantly longer than the last one, but it's been fun. It's been productive, and I'm looking forward to doing more of this. Yeah.
Yeah. Where can you hear from us again?
We're on Twitter at Americans Footy. We're also on Instagram and YouTube and stuff. Individually, you are at Benjamin HK01.
You are at Castle Media, and your son is at Cat Named Brian on Instagram. One other thing to know, when you do see us on Twitter, most of the time we initial our posts so you can tell which one of us is actually talking, just because think it makes sense when it's two people sharing an account, just like,
Yeah, or the other alternative would be, you know, like one of us uppercase, one of us lowercase or something. There needs to be ways to differentiate, and I think we're good at that.
yeah. Well, undoubtedly we'll end up saying the same things one after another a couple times. That'll just be kind of fun to compare how we speak about the same events. But for now, we're gonna sign off because it's getting toward midnight here. And I think some community series action is actually on Fox Sports 2 right now, so let's watch.